Please proceed.
Okay, good afternoon. This is a meeting of the Prescott Heritage Committee in regards to a proposal for some renovations at a heritage property that has been designated at 290 Water Street West. So I'll call the meeting to order and ask for an adoption of the agenda. The recommendation is that the agenda for the meeting.
We think it's Henry Street West, right?
Yeah.
What did I say?
290 Water Street.
Did I say water again? I'm sorry, it's
Yeah.
Henry. I don't know why I'm saying all the time. So it's 290 Henry Street West, popularly known as the Old Registry Office. We'll ask for an adoption of the agenda. The recommendation that the agenda for the meeting of May 26, 2021 to be accepted as presented. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please?
I'll move. Sandra Eisman speaking.
A seconder? Somebody twitch.
Sure.
Second.
Okay, Louis, I got that first. We'll have the adoption of the minutes from December 3rd, 2019, and the recommendation there is that the minutes from the meeting of December 3rd, 2019 be accepted as presented. I'm presuming you all got this by email, so you've had a chance to go over the minutes. Is there any questions arising there? Anything that anybody sees wrong or would like to correct? No?
I thought we met sooner though, did we not? Or was that the committee? Nope, that was the other committee. Never mind. Good. I moved that.
A lot of
Moved to
committees, that was planning or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, the advisory. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the
Okay.
advisory, the committee of adjustment, correct?
All right, good. So the recommendation is the meeting minutes from the meeting of December 3rd, 2019 be accepted as presented. Could I have a mover of those minutes, please?
Mover. I'm moving. Sandra Eisman.
Okay, cool. I have this thing in the middle of my screen here, so I can't see a lot of the names. It says this meeting is being recorded. I'm going to hit continue and see what happens here. Okay, good. Now I can see everybody's names. Okay, the agenda item for this evening is the application.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Mr. Chair, I don't believe we have a seconder for that motion. Sandra Eisman moved it, but we don't have a seconder.
Okay, somebody want to second that?
Louis, you're up. No.
Louis, it's you again, I'm
There
afraid.
you go.
Joan wasn't here, so she can't second it. So Louis, you're the seconder on record. So the agenda item is the application to alter 290 Henry Street West, and it's a property protected under the Ontario Heritage Act. Very old building, dates from the middle of the 18th century. It's been a fixture in Prescott since that time. We have the purchaser of the property here with us. It's going to give us some explanation. I believe the contractor is with us from his truck, it looks like now as well.
Yeah, that's Leonard.
Okay, good to see you, Leonard. We're going to take a little bit of a pause right here. Does anybody, we're waiting for a couple members to come in actually. Anybody else have any memories or comments on the property that they'd like to give us? Everybody's quiet.
I mean, I saw the pictures when it was on realtor.ca.
Yeah,
So, I mean, I've always wondered what it looked like on the inside. I see that it's currently 2 apartments. Is it being changed to a single family dwelling? Yeah. And are you taking possession then? Like you're going to move in yourself, Heather? Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm
Lindsay,
gonna,
go
I
ahead.
mean, initially, I'm gonna use it as a second home because I live in Prince Edward County currently, so, we're going to start the work and make it livable. It's a long way from inhabitable at this point, so. But, so it's gonna be a um, two-step process, fix it up and then be able to use it more.
Right. Yeah, I saw some of it was unfinished on the inside when I was looking at the pictures. Like it had been turned into two separate apartments, but then there seemed to be some space that just wasn't finished at all. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's distinctly two sections of the building. There's the front section, which is, I guess we can call the finished section, and it's the stone part of the building. And then the back part of the building is, we'll call it the brick section, and it's completely unfinished. It's
Oh.
original everything, I would say, and there's no plumbing in the bathroom, and there's just lath and plaster, and I'd say original windows. And the shed that's attached to it is I don't know how old it is, but in bad disrepair. And
Were you planning on putting, like, I'm assuming it doesn't have a basement?
no, there's no basement. There's, in fact, the stone part of the building is on a concrete pad, right, Leonard? Is that what we're?
The original part of the building is the 1850s section. It is on a concrete pad. In the back part, I would say, not an expert here, but probably 1900. It's a more recent addition. It's brick, the front is stone, and the back part has a small cistern and crawl space under it.
You're telling me the front part doesn't even have a crawl space? Wow. Wow. Okay. It's actually similar to mine. Mine is 1850 in the front, 1900 brick in the back, but I do actually have like a basement in the stone front part, but then yeah, the crawl space under the brick part. But that surprises me. It's just red on pad. But was it like what it started off as a municipal building? Is that right, Lee? Was that
Yeah,
always its purpose?
apparently it was the original registry office for Prescott. And I think I read in the information that we got, there was 1875. It was sold back to the original owner of the property. And I presume that's when the other registry office, the Grenville County Registry Office, took its place. So that would be my guess anyway. I'm wondering, the rock runs really funny in town here, and I know you can have some of these old houses with a rock basement, and next to it, a house with a full deep basement. It just kind of goes up and down, all kinds of, I wonder if maybe that's the reason why there is no basement or crawl space there, because the rock is close to the surface.
Good surmising. Good surmising. Lee, do you have any memories? You've got lots of memories of this town, probably more
Well,
memories than me and Louis.
Yeah, I'll
and,
give you one bad
Jim.
memory of the property, and that's
Okay.
somebody decided to paint the stone, which is a real sore spot with me. And that top stone is now painted green, and the bottom is kind of a beigey color. Actually, I stopped and had a closer look at it today, and it's a real light coat of paint. It's flaking off the stone as it is. I don't think it would take much to clean it off. But like a lot of stone buildings we have in town, they it isn't the late Tom Van Dusen. Welcome.
Yeah, sorry about that. I actually
right.
did forget, but then suddenly remembered.
It's all right. I'm on 2 other boards with you. I'm used to it. What was I going to say? Yeah, like a lot of stone buildings in town, it's got kind of a cut stone on the face of it, and then I suspect it's rubble stone on the sides with plaster over top, which is kind of traditionally painted as well. So it's and then of course it's had a brick addition on that and a wood addition on that. So it's had a lot of evolution over the years.
So
We're
wait,
only
so
short.
Can we just confirm, you're saying that the green part is stone? I thought that was wood.
No, it's stone.
Wow.
That makes it one of the most unique buildings in Prescott. I don't know of another building in Prescott that has the stone at the top like that one does. And that's one of the things that's listed of why it was designated the construction of the thing. We're only short one now, Bob, so I think what we'll do is go ahead. Tom, I started off and went down on our agenda to the actual report from the staff. So we're starting at item number 5.1 now. And the recommendation there is that the Prescott Heritage Committee recommend the council approve the application for the proposed renovations to the property located at 290 Henry Street, and that staff be directed to issue the heritage permit. So there is a report on that, and Sean, I'm sure you would like to take us away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, as already mentioned in the meeting, this is one of our older, in fact, one of the first buildings that were set aside for distinction. In fact, it was done so back in 1989, and it was passed under bylaw 09-89 designating the property. As we've said, it is known as the Old Registry Office, and basically the things that make it really interesting, of course, is the classical vernacular style, and the windows and stuff that are along the front are interesting too, the way they're curved into the stone. This property has recently changed hands. In fact, we are lucky enough tonight to have the owner and the contractor who will be doing the work with us. And they reached out to us actually even before they owned the property to find out exactly what the steps were. And I must say I was very impressed in that we literally had an application in, I believe it was the day that you took over. Was it not, Heather, or was it the day after?
Maybe the day after.
We went through it. I did meet on site with the owner and the contractor. I would like to stress to the Heritage Committee, this is a building permit that is going to take some time, and it will take a few phases in order to get it done, because this property has, rightly or wrongly, been allowed to fall into what I would call, it would be very close to the state where it almost would need to be totally removed. It would be the only solution. It is still savable. The current owner agrees that it's still savable, but she is asking for a little bit of patience and understanding that it may take 1 year or 2 years to complete it. And she's already petrified of what we might find when we open it up. And I've tried to reassure her that we will work with her. Exterior renovations, which of course is always one of the most important things to the Heritage Committee. Basically, think of the back half as being totally redone almost immediately, especially as it relates to the windows and the roofing, the little side entrance that's already there. In time, will also be removing the ramp at the front, because it's no longer needed for accessibility. They will be addressing the windows in the front, but they'll be doing it in such a way that the storm windows that give it its unique shape and look will be maintained and refurbished, with the newer windows put in behind it. Sorry, got to move a little bit down again. All stonework will be repaired and pointed as necessary. And at that point, the owner will make a decision where either her preference is to expose the stone and clean it up, especially along the front. But unfortunately, as mentioned by the chairman, we're not sure what the cost is going to be. And as Heather likes to say, she's not made of money. And unfortunately, if it becomes cost prohibitive, she will be looking to repaint it. But she'll be picking a more cream color, as I think would be an off-white color. Heather, that would be a fair assessment.
Yeah, I mean, I've been referencing the Benjamin Moore historical colors, and I think, I mean, it's essentially going to be the same colors, but just different values, you know, more
Shades,
of,
yeah.
different, more of a cream than an actual white, and more of an olivey green than, but just, am I allowed to ask a question at this point, or should I wait?
I would recommend we wait till we get to the
Okay.
end, and the chairman will probably give you a chance to
Okay.
correct anything that I've misrepresented. The interior renovations are mainly going to be focused on the back portion. I have been inside the house last week. It is extremely rustic. I do not believe anyone's been living in it probably for an easily 30 plus years in the back portion. But basically they'll be opening up the kitchen, combining the current kitchen with the existing kitchen, like the new kitchen in the back. The stairs will be done to the upstairs. There'll be a bedroom placed up there. And basically turning it into a proper single family dwelling. One of the first things you'll notice is that they plan on replacing the roof on the back. It has been done currently in cedar shakes at the back with steel at the front. They will be switching to steel at the back, although they won't be able to match it exactly, but it will have a similar vibe and color to what is on the front. They also plan on putting proper drip edge along the front almost immediately as well. One other thing that was mentioned in the bylaw was original plaster cornice moldings in the front part of the building. I'm not sure when it happened, but at some point it was covered up with a drop ceiling. Fortunately, they didn't wreck it. In time, and it'll probably be one of the very last things we get to, our hope is, and Heather's hope is to re-expose it at that point. But I did want to warn you that it was in there, and it'll probably be one of the last things that gets addressed. So the owner does not have a timeline at this time for completing everything. Part of it depends on cost, part of it depends on time. But we are anticipating, from talking with her the other day, I would think if things go perfectly, about 2 years, and if things go not so perfectly, more like 4. But Heather and me will work that out as time is moving on. Renovations are anticipated to start immediately as soon as the permit is issued. It'll just be done in various phases, with a lot done this summer so that it's capable of being lived in, and the finishing touches being done in the next 2 or 3 years. So that is my report, Mr. Chair, and I'm more than welcome to receive questions, or if Heather wishes to clarify anything.
Heather, is there anything that Sean has said that you'd care to clarify before I ask the committee for questions?
No, he said absolutely everything perfectly. I was just, yeah, no, it's as it stands, it's great. And our start date is, you know, July 1st, beginning of July. And in the meantime.
Can I ask you one thing? What brought you to Prescott?
Well, I have a friend that just bought a building in Prescott, and I was born in Montreal, and my brother lives in Montreal, and I have 2 very good friends in Montreal, one of whom just moved back. And so I've been going to Montreal a lot and dropping in to see my friend who just moved to Prescott. And the more times I stopped in to see her, she bought a place on Dibble. It was sort of just seeing the charm of the town and thinking, you know, what a beautiful town and what an interesting opportunity. And I'm, you know, just playing with ideas of being closer to people that mean a lot to me, and the idea of having a second property or an investment opportunity to fix up a precious old building. Just sort of circumstances, really.
Okay, that's cool. I always like to know what brings people in the door. Is there any questions any of the members have for Sean on his report?
I guess just the one question I have, is there any intention or capability to add any kind of addition at some point? Is there any question about opening that up? No? Okay, just curious.
It is a pretty small lot too, Sandra.
It did look like
It's
that.
just about 100% occupied.
So no building up.
I had a couple of questions. One in regards to the wooden shed addition, whatever you want to call it, that's on the side. And as Sean pointed out, the building occupies pretty much all of the lot except for a driveway and a very small front yard, which is taken up by the handicap ramps right now. And going by my memory here, that wood addition is pretty close to the property lines on the north and the west, is it not?
It is, but it is grandfathered in there.
But the description that you have given is that that's coming down completely. Cement floor is going in and it's going to be completely rebuilt. If you take it down completely, that gets rid of the grandfather, does it not?
No, it does not.
You're positive on that?
Positive, 100% positive. The government has been very clear that an owner has permission to renovate, replace, rebuild, including from scratch, any building that is already pre-existing. Now, don't get me wrong, she will have to make sure that we have non-combustibles and stuff like that if it's too close to the property line. But in this case, it does not appear to be too close.
Okay, well, I was aware of that if there was a foundation, but I didn't realize that if it was an attached building without a foundation. What I'm getting at is it's essentially almost in the front yard of the house next door, and I would hate to see something underway and then get a protest from a neighbor, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do understand that they could protest all they want. It's still there and still pre-existing. And the intent before removing it is to rebuild it. So if you removed it and said you had no intent to rebuild it, don't get me wrong, that's part of why she can't go up. If she tried to make it higher or tried to make it wider or tried to make it bigger, then that would trigger a minor variance in a planning act. But to replace it for the exact same size, it does not trigger anything.
Okay. One thing I did notice when I took a look at it today, which you can always find out something new if you take a closer look at something. What I noticed was that the front door that is facing Henry Street would not have been the original front door. The front door would have been in the middle of the building where there's a window today. I suspect when it was changed over back to a house back in the 1800s, they moved the door over to give it more possibility for inside utilization. But yeah, you can see where the original front door was in the middle of the building, and it's been filled in on the bottom there. Not overly well, but it's been filled in.
So what is the intention then with the windows? What are you planning on doing exactly?
I'm gonna put replacement or small profile windows in between the storm and the inside. I'm not going to touch any of the woodwork. I'll just put the window in and then trim it out. It's not my intention to touch any of the woodwork.
Okay, thanks.
Just to make it so that it's more efficient.
That sounds good.
The storms will be able to go back on. I'll leave what I can, and they'll be put on in the fall every year. There are storms there, I think, for the majority of the windows.
And the front door that is on it now, which is a kind of a wood shed looking door, is it your intention to keep that or replace it with something?
Well, there's
more?
that's like a storm door. There's another door that's in the back in that shed that's screened, and there's an interior door between that and the dwelling, which is pretty close to original, if I can remember right. So there's that door, it's like a storm door, and then there's another door in behind it.
So is it your intention to leave the storm door on or just change that in the winter?
Just probably
Green?
just change it. I don't know what Heather's intent is, but I'm planning on leaving. I'll probably put the screen door on it for this year, and then in the fall put that back on it. I think it looks cool.
Mhm. Okay. Anybody got any questions for Heather?
Yeah, just, and then what is your, like, are you hoping to do air conditioning at some point? Like, what are you just gonna sort of?
Yeah, I don't think that's possible in building, because of, there's ceiling fans currently, there's, big windows, like the west facing window, it opens like this and it's a full screen and so it's just to move the air around. I don't think HVAC is a possibility. There's nowhere to put anything on the property, and there'll be cold drinks served on a consistent basis.
Honestly, like I find my house takes so long to get warm, and there's like one day last year where I thought, wow, air conditioning might have been nice, but I
Yeah.
really think I managed fine without air conditioning in my stone house. So yeah, I think it should be fine.
Okay, well, I think unless somebody has any other questions, or unless Heather would like to volunteer something, I personally think that this has come along at maybe the nick of time. I think Shauna would agree with me there. That place has needed something for a long time, and all of the interior renovations that it looks like you're describing here is really not this panel's business, but it's going to put it into a livable single family home condition, which is basically all we can hope for a building of that age. My only problem with the whole thing is the painted stone. And Sean has mentioned that if it's feasible, economical, whatever, you're prepared to take it back to the original stone. However, the feeling that I get from you, since you've mentioned colors already, is that you intend to paint it.
Well, sorry, I don't want to interrupt.
That as much as I like to see the renovations, part of the reason that was designated, and it is stated in the description, is the unique stonework on the building, and it was never painted originally.
Mm-hmm.
And we do have brick in town that's been painted, so I don't have a problem with the brick being painted. I don't have a problem with the plastered over rubble stone being painted, but I do have a problem with the stone on the front of that building and on the eaves being painted. And so I don't know where that leaves us. We will be taking a vote on this, whether to recommend to council to approve the renovations. And I suspect that the will of the committee is that we will approve the recommendations because it is a good idea. and it is a good use of the property. But I do have a deep concern about that stone. We don't have the opportunity very often to get our fingers in the pie, so to speak, where a lot of these older buildings are concerned. Excuse me. I know there's brick that's been painted down street that has been an eyesore since the day it was done, and it's there, and now nobody wants to go to the expense of taking it off. We have the possibility of having this removed now when it's not any more than one coat, and I would like to see that. I would like to see you commit to that before you went ahead with the renovations. Is there a possibility of that?
Well, I've been in touch with Dana regarding various incentive programs or grants, and I'm just reading here, there's a facade improvement grant. You know, a one-time matching grant of up to 50% of the eligible costs to a maximum of $3,000. And Sean's given me a rough estimate, you know, somewhere in the ballpark of anywhere from $18 to $30 a square foot to refinish stone. So if we just use the existing square footage, I'm just going to say the building's probably 20 feet wide. And we're probably looking at, I don't know, 15 feet tall at least. You know, that's 300 square feet. So if you're looking, you know, at the high end at 30, you're at 30, you know, $30 a square foot, you're looking at a $9,000 minimum job. And if the grant only covers up to a maximum of $3,000, you know, it's a hard pill to swallow to, you know, until I've done more research on actual costs and what condition the filler is underneath what was the original doorway. You know, I haven't even started the project, and there's just so many unknown aspects to it that, you know, I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, and I don't want to say that I'm not going to look into it, but I'm not really comfortable with committing to doing it. But I'm certainly, you know, I would love to do it. I would love to do the whole building, but it's, you know, there's just a point at which things don't become financially viable. But I'm certainly looking into it, and I've been in touch with Dana, and I'm gonna pursue what grants, because it's specifically a facade improvement grant. So I don't know if the Heritage Committee has any other grants available other than what Dana offers.
Well, we're looking at, and we have looked at in the past, in all honesty, this COVID business has just kind of interrupted an awful lot of things at council. It's difficult when you can't actually sit in the room and see whose eye is twitching when you're describing something there. Somebody's not paying attention, and it stands no chance of going through. It's different looking everybody on a screen here. So there's a lot of things that we probably should have discussed and haven't, but we have looked at expanding the SIP grant area. We've talked different times about expanding it to including some of the older homes. We haven't got there yet. Whether we will get there or not, I don't know. Your property is on the fringe of the BIA area. And there was talk about expanding the BIA area as well. Now, expanding it into a residential zone, I don't know whether that would be appropriate or not. We've been expanding it out of residential zones lately, but the fact that that used to be a government or commercial building and is on the edge of the BIA might be able to float something your way. But excuse me, you don't get me wrong here. I don't want to get you upset, because I really appreciate you buying the building and what you're going to do to it. But I would have liked a little more a little more work gone into looking at the outside of the building, the stonework, the cleaning, getting exact cost on it, giving us a better idea of where you are on that, because historically, I think that is going to have a large effect. So many of the homes, which you wouldn't know in Prescott, not being from here, plaster was a big thing in Prescott. It was fashionable when you had stone buildings to plaster them at one time. Now it's fashionable to expose the stone. And Sandra, you live in one that's had the plaster knocked off it and is now a stone. I don't think you regret it, do you?
Well, I didn't do it, but I'm looking at removing the plaster from the brick too.
Yeah.
So I would
Mhm.
love to see all the plaster gone from the house. So yeah, it was a very costly job though, from what I understand, doing the stone side. And I don't know what the technique is exactly for removing paint directly from stone. Does anyone know exactly what that technique is?
Well, you're probably looking at either sandblasting or walnut shell blasting, I would think, one of the two. That's traditionally the way it's been done. I know the commercial building that is where O'Heafy's is on the corner of King and Edward. The previous owner to that building painted the whole thing, all the stone, and the O'Heafy's, when they took it over, started cleaning it off, and I don't know what happened, but there's a square in the upper corner that didn't get done. But that was one coat of paint which was coming off already. So it certainly can be done, has been done, should be done, in my opinion.
I mean, from like, I did just have a quote for removing the stucco from the brick. And I'll just say, from what I understand, if it's really already coming off, it will significantly reduce your quote. So if, you know, the chair is saying the paint is already peeling off, it, you know, hopefully it would just kind of come off pretty easily then, and the cost wouldn't be too high. I don't know. You know, Mr. Chair, you've really made a very convincing argument, and I'm now also feeling really strongly that the paint should be coming off. And if not, like all of it this one time, can you do that in stages? You know, you're saying you're going to be doing your renos over stages. Can you get the front first, you know, not paint the sides? There's just that temptation to make it look super pretty and then kind of get one side, get another side. Can you spread out that work a little bit?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's difficult for me to know without, as I say, the only numbers that I have at you know, currently are the ones that Sean mentioned kindly, just to give me an idea of, for example, if I was to just do the face, the front face of it. So that's what I'm saying, you know, just the front face would be, you know, and it's, I'm probably far under, but you know, a $10,000 proposition. And I don't know what square footage, Sandra, you per square foot price you got, but you know, to imagine doing the sides, you know, the tricky thing is it does turn into a brick building at the back. So how do you marry the two materials? How do you marry stone and brick, and that brick at the back that's currently, you know, that's, you know, I just don't have expertise, and I can appreciate that it would have been, in a perfect world, I would have been completely prepared with research, but then also, you know, that's, you know, I don't really even know a lot of the people involved. I introduced myself to Dan Throop down the way this past weekend and had an opportunity to see the work that he's doing on those buildings. And oh my gosh, you know, he's doing some pretty spectacular stuff, particularly on the interior of the 256, I think it is, or but you know, I wanted to get the building application or the building permit application in so that I can move forward in the project, and because it's a heritage, you know, sooner than later, and because it's and to deal with, Leonard's availability and to be able to fit the project in and have it sealed up with windows put in for the, before winter. So time felt like it felt prudent to get the application in, without doing a whole lot of research. And I sort of felt like I didn't realize the level of commitment as far as the, what you would be looking for. And I have a great willingness. I think it's a beautiful building. But I don't want to mislead you that I have bottomless resources, and Sean and I have already been discussing what I'm anticipating to be renovation costs. So this is, as I go, I will learn more. And as I learn more, certainly, and as Lee's already said, if there's additional grants available and we can work together and I can look at what Dana's willing to give me for some facade improvement, and maybe if this committee is prepared to, on a combined basis with the existing heritage grants, look at making it possible or somewhere, that it's, financially doable, then that's exciting. But I'm not in a position to know any of that at this point.
So can I just ask a question then? Okay, so Mr. Chair, is your concern primarily then just the front facade? Like, are we concerned a little bit the sides being painted as well? Like, where does the main concern kind of lie? Just with the front?
Well, the description of the building is its use, of course, and the stonework. And the stonework that they're referring to is the front of the building and the pediment at the front of the building, which is all stone. There's not another one in Prescott like that. Pediment works are all wood or metal in town. That's the only one that's stone. And that pediment extends back along the sides at the top until it encounters the brick addition. So the part that's painted green right now, the green would have to go back to stone, and then the front of the building would have to go back to stone as well to take it back to its historical accuracy. The sides that are the rubble stone and plastered over, that can be painted. It would normally be painted anyway. The brick has already been painted once, and to paint that the same as the plaster that's over top of the rubble stone, I don't see a real problem with that. We've got a lot of painted brick in town now. So what would be the removable part would be the stone at the top on the sides and the stone along or on the front. And of course, any windowsills that might be exposed anyplace else. Does that answer your question, Sandra?
Yeah, that does. Yeah, that's very, I think that's reasonable, but yeah.
Okay. Sean, you had your hand up before Matthew.
Well, I'll let Matthew go first. He's probably going to say the same thing I'm going to, so.
So
Go ahead.
I'm going to make a suggestion is that what we have in front of us this evening is what the Heritage Committee can vote on. In terms of making a recommendation on other changes that are outside of the scope of this application, then certainly I think the committee can make those recommendations, that if any changes were to be considered in the future for the parts that you've mentioned, that certainly the proponent can come back to the committee and have that discussion. But I'm not sure that we can add additional work to the application beyond the application of what we're talking about this evening. But certainly making recommendations as to things that you would like addressed in the future and having that come back as things that the committee would see or like to see, then that's absolutely fine. But I think we just need to focus on the application that's in front of us and the work being considered as part of that application.
Thank you, Matthew. Does everybody understand that? comments? Sean?
Yeah, the only thing I would like to add is the proponent that came in tonight has come in really with a plan A and plan B because you don't know what's going to happen. And plan A is to get the stone exposed if it's economically viable. But I would like to remind the committee that it has already been painted. And whenever you're going to take paint off, it does do some damage to the existing stonework, no matter how careful you are with it, whether you're sandblasting, walnut blasting, using a chemical. And the other thing that I'd like to remind the committee is because the door was moved and it's been filled in, it may actually make it look worse to expose all that stonework and have an obvious patch in the middle. So, like I said, I think I asked her, and I'll be quite honest, I asked her to give us some paint ideas if exposing the stone did not work. And I'd like to stress that she didn't come in with plan A of painting it. She came in with plan A of exposing it. But I had advised her that there could be some issues when you go to expose it, why it doesn't work. And it'd be better to let the Heritage Committee know that she was going to respect the heritage colors for paint and stuff so that it didn't have to come back in front of Heritage partway through the process.
Sean, just to add to that, I've done restoration on stonework, and this is about 10 years ago in the old annexed areas of Toronto. And it is true with stonework from the 1800s, depending on how it was chiseled, cut, and what part of a quarry of Ontario it came from, if it had high lime or had low lime, whenever like you start sandblasting, you start making the stone very porous. And when you start doing that, whenever you start having winters, it becomes brittle and it starts chafing off like concrete. And that's the only issue that I've seen with buildings that get sandblasted on stone from the 1800s is depending the level of lime that they had, right? The only question I had for the owner, Heather, was if she ever intended of building a little porch, a veranda, or anything to add to the front facade, just to kind of give a curb appeal on that matter.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because clearly you can tell by the paint on the front of the building that there was a porch there. You can sort of see there's coloration on the stone. I don't know if you have the images in front of you, but I didn't necessarily have that in my plans, but because I was more concerned about respecting the architectural integrity of the building as it exists now. And I didn't want to, it's important to me that, I comply with what your, the Heritage Committee's priorities are. And I didn't want to complicate this application. And I hadn't even thought of it. I could see that it once would have been there, but it's not in this plan. No,
and from just working every day in the field, I think the feeling you and your contractor have is that the 5-6 months that you think you have are probably only 4 months, just because you're in a time lapse to winterize your house and have it ready. You're going to be facing material shortages as you already have right now: windows, paint, trim, hardwood, whatever you want to name it. So right now you're in a bit of a time lapse to get this as fast as possible, right? Much of the committee chair that, I do agree. Yeah, it'd be nice if you can sandblast it or sand down the stone. But from past experience from stone from the 1800s is that the minute you start blasting too much, you become porous. You make it almost like a sponge, and water absorbs over the winter. And year after year, it'll just chafe off, and that's a problem that I saw in the old parts of Toronto where I started my career. And that's the only advice that I have to that. It's just, it's really nice to see that someone from out of town is coming to invest in the area and make home of a building that I think has been let go in some ways. But I think you're in a time lapse to get going, because you're running out of material time and you're running out of weather in about 4 months.
I appreciate you pointing that out.
Well, Matthew's made a suggestion that essentially we stick with the recommendation that we have and the renovations that you've already pointed out, which do mention painting the exterior. What I would suggest is that we vote to approve the recommendation. However, we put a statement in that recommendation that no painting of the exterior be done until the Heritage Committee is consulted. Basically, what we would let you do is go ahead and do everything that you want now, except paint the exterior of the stonework. If you want to paint the plaster and the brick on the outside, that's fine. But you do not paint the front of the building. You do not paint the stone at the top of the building. And then you go out and get your quotes on how much it's actually going to cost you. And then you come back and see us, and then we could make a decision whether, no, that's ridiculous, and we'll let you paint it. Or we can come up with some kind of a grant that would help you pay for it. How does that sound?
Sure.
Matthew, does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, I have no issue with that if the applicant has no issue with it.
Okay, can somebody put that in words that will be good for us, Lindsay?
For you, Mr. Chair. So the motion's not on the table yet, so it's not really an amendment, but I've added that no painting be done to the exterior without coming before the Prescott Heritage Committee at a later date to be determined.
Exterior front facade and
Exterior
dentils
front.
and
Exterior stonework.
Exterior stonework.
That includes the stonework at the top of the sides.
So exterior stonework is clear enough. That
is that all right with you, Heather?
yeah, I mean, my concern is that you know, it's not committing me to anything, but when Louis is saying that his experience as working in the trade, that it's actually damaging to the exterior of the building and creates an inferior stone condition after sandblasted, it feels like I'm getting valuable input from an experienced tradesperson dealing with this type of material. So, I mean, I would be willing to go and get other opinions, but I've got a fellow sitting on a heritage committee telling me he's done this before and he doesn't really feel like it's a very good idea or that it may harm the building. So that's a big alert to me.
He's also telling you it depends an awful lot on the actual stone. So if when you are getting your pricing on getting this sandblasted or walnut plastered or whatever, I suspect whoever would be giving you those estimates would probably be able to tell you what kind of stone it is and what kind of an effect it's going to have. Does that seem reasonable, Louis?
Yeah, and you're actually 100% right. And it depends on the stone, and depends, for example, what kind of stone you have in Canada, right? So like in Southern Ontario, the stone that I remember was no problem. It was late 1800s, early 1900s. It didn't have a lot of lime. It wasn't shell rock. It was like cut stone from rock, right? But I remember some buildings were mid 1800s. It was just whatever the guys could find in the back of a field. They chiseled it, but it had lime, and anything that we did to it to prep the stone before sandblasting, because a lot of the work with sandblasting is the prep work. Are you going to get into the lines? Are you going to get into the mortar? Or are you going to get rid of all the mortar and then start sandblasting from the inside back? And it depends all on the stone. It depends on the pH level of the stone. It depends if it came from a mud pile area that was just glacier till. You know, there's a lot of good stone workers in the area. From here, I would say to Iroquois, and they would tell you, I mean, they do this work every day. But he's right. It all depends on the stone. I'm speaking from experience because I've thought about sandblasting the paint off my brick on my home because it's an old home too. And then I thought to myself, well, it could decay the clay because it depends what kind of clay it was, right? So I thought to myself, hey, I'll leave it alone for now because it is an expensive venture. If you think $10,000 on the side, then you start thinking, oh, maybe you do 3 sides, you can be, deep in your pocket before you finish a project. So, I would really get to know people that have done it for at least 20 years and do it every day and know the science and the basically what kind of stone and what kind of process it would be, right? I really do. I actually appreciate the chair's involvement in trying to save the stone and show stone, because there are some buildings here that you can tell they didn't have any money and they just painted it, but some of them are just painted awful colors, right? We'll just be the first one to say it. But at the end of the day, you have to do your homework. And you're from the Montreal area. You got a lot of beautiful stone, and there's a lot of masons in that area. If you get to know, and they're willing to come down, they'll tell you the science of the stone, and they'll tell you what kind, they'll tell you what part, and they'll tell you how they even cut it, because there's different techniques, right? So spend your time in research, and I think that will really give you your final answer.
Yeah.
Thanks for the expert opinion, Louis. So did you have something else, Louis? No. Lindsay, did you have something for us there?
Yes, Mr. Chair, would you like me to read the entire motion with the addition?
Please.
Okay. So the recommendation is that the Prescott Heritage Committee recommend that council approve the application for the proposed renovations to the property located at 290 Henry Street, and that staff be directed to issue the heritage building permit, and that no painting be done to the exterior stonework without coming before the Prescott Heritage Committee at a later date.
Is that okay with everybody, including you, Heather?
Sure.
Any, all right, somebody want to move that?
I'll move that.
Sandra, seconder.
I'll second it.
Tom had his hand up next. So all in favor?
Aye.
That passes. So that takes care of that part of our program for this evening. Thank you very much, Heather. We appreciate your commitment to Prescott, and we wish you very well with your project. And every day I walk by with my dog, I will be keeping an eye on it.
It's
Can I
very
just ask
small,
on
Will.
a very practical level, when you say this, it passes here, but then it has to go to council, like what are the next steps, and do I get some sort of piece of paper confirming this, or how does this work?
This committee makes a recommendation to council that council accepts essentially the vote that we took. That's usually what happens, but every once in a while, somebody in council has an objection, and it will get sent back. But I doubt very seriously if that's going to happen here. I think this is a good project you have. Matthew, do you have something to say?
So this will rise to council on June 7th. And so you can actually watch the meeting if you'd like on YouTube. And Sean will likely be in contact with you on June 8th. And if it's approved, then we'd issue the permit that day.
Okay. And this permit is different than the building permit. Is that correct?
Sean, do you want to speak to that?
This is a resolution of council to accept it and so the building permit will simply say you have a building permit that's conditional upon the recommendations as per the Heritage Committee. And I'll probably even add the thing reminding you not to repaint the front stonework until such time as agreed to between the two parties.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Okay. Get over here. 5.2, it's report 022021, updates on property with heritage interest or heritage designations. And Sean, would you like to take us through that? Lindsay, did you have something to say?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. I presented the report to the committee.
Oh, okay. Well, then why don't you go ahead with it? Sorry, Sean.
So this report is intended to be an update to the committee. Since the last meeting took place beginning of December 2019, a couple of properties have come forward to staff. So the report just outlined the 3 properties. The first one being 388 Center Street. The committee received an email updating that staff had received a building permit to renovate and repair. And since this property is heritage interest and there wasn't the intent to demolish, with discussions with the chair, just an email informing the committee seemed to be enough. The next property is 763 King Street West, which is also known as Weiser Hall. This property is designated and it received site plan approval. The agreement received site plan approval before council on April 19th. And this property had come before the Heritage Committee, I believe in 2016, and that report was included in the package. So since this has already been before Prescott Heritage, it wasn't necessary to come back. And the last property is 187 King Street West. And just to keep the committee informed, there's no intent to demolish the building and it is of heritage interest. So staff will ensure the committee is informed as progress is undertaken at that location.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. Anybody have any questions on any of those properties? Anything that's going on there that Sean maybe can answer for you? No? Good. In that case, is there any new business before us? Anybody have anything else they'd like to bring up? And then I guess the last thing would be adjournment. So I hear a motion to adjourn. No? No motion to adjourn.
Yeah, let's stay here
Adjourn us
forever. No.
all.
I motion to adjourn.
All right, good. Joan, we haven't had you second anything yet tonight, so you're seconding our adjournment. How's that?
Good, good.
Okay, great. We are adjourned.